On this episode, I test out at charity shop an automatic Minolta SLR. The HMS Interceptor docks at the local marina, and traditional media's slow and painful death. I swear the sound of this isn't going to drive anyone mad. So for about $14.99 US, excluding tax, at a chain of thrift stores and local charity shops, known as Goodwill, I've purchased this. The Minolta Maxxum SPxi with a Minolta Maxxum 35 to 80mm f4.5 to 5.6 power zoom lens. Yet again, another film camera that requires a 2CR5 battery. They're not cheap and they can't be recharged. However, if you're careful of them, they can last quite a while. Do have to remember to not store them in the camera or else they will drain. And do note that the Maxxum SPxi may also be known as the Dynax SPxi in other markets. Referring to camerawiki.org for more information on this, in an article in which no sources have been cited, and I quote, "It was one of the budget variants of Minolta's XI autofocus SLR bodies. It came out in 1992, end quote. The XI in this case refers to extended intelligence, a camera mode characterized by its automatic focal length adjustment. A feature that, however, requires a motor zoom lens like the AF Zoom XI 35 to 200, which I don't have and this didn't come with. Yeah, when you hear an auto-zooming camera in 2025, you're probably thinking about that AI tech that every tech company's trying to shove down our throats. Thing is, this predates the founding of closed AI by more than 2 decades. At any rate, I'm honestly not comfortable with my camera or any other of my tools taking creative decisions away from me. I also have no way to test the XI capabilities as this 35 to 80mm is not an XI lens, and I honestly would prefer to keep it that way. As for the lens itself, it's cheap. It feels cheap. It doesn't have great image quality until you stop it down seriously. Users on another site called Dixum.com mention the build quality, or rather the lack thereof, along with the lack of sharpness, and the quote, "Annoying and motorized control, slower and less accurate than manual," end quote. Now, as the way I see it, it's somewhat okay when used with film, and said film is scanned on an old Epson flatbed. I honestly feel a great contempt for it though, and I'll elaborate more on that later on in the vid. So yeah, let's go ahead and waste another roll of Fujifilm 200 in order to test this thing out and see if it's at all worth it to me. I'm going all the way in 80mm focal length on this thing. At least this is doing a good job keeping focus. We're trying to. I just saw a lady in Washington pulling in. Finding the autofocus is rather fiddly to work with. we have here an early example of a focus by wire SLR lens. In order to manually focus this thing, I have to hold here, pull it back a bit, just rotate left and right. Looks like minimum focus distance is 0.5 meters. And this is fiddly to work with again. It lacks granularity. And the sort of tactile response that would have with a proper physical focus control. That right there is the HMS Interceptor. Open by donation. Yeah, wasting film on stuff like this. Barely 11 shots into this whole thing. Supposing as of a few shots ago, I've decided I just keep this going. Aperture priority, wide open, which means we're f4 at the wide end and f5.6 at the long end. I can't tell what focal length I'm at unless it's either 35 or 80. This SPxi doesn't have a focal length display inside the viewfinder. As I look around and I see bits of floating kelp. I think it was your last year video around a touring boat. Should never really forget the obligatory photos of the welcome sign. Witnessing the decay of print media. The fact that somehow someone is still trying, that's something. Focus, you piece of... Video killed the radio star. TikTok is killing the video star. It's cleansing getting windy. Okay, can't really wait till I finish the last shot. I'm gonna head over to the pub. Damn. Now for the post-shoot reflection. Well, I'll tell you what. The shooting experience reminds me too much of shooting on a modern camera, with all the downsides and none of the advantages. Especially considering this early implementation of focus by wire and a power zoom on an interchangeable lens SLR. The idea probably was reducing the size of the lenses compared to a manual one, but the reduction isn't worth it. Too many compromises in quality. It was a good idea in theory, but in practice, the controls aren't precise enough and the noise reminds me too much of dental work. To me, there's no point in having a power zoom on a stills-only ILC, but there is a better point to using it on video. Yeah, I'm shooting the vid on the Sony FX30 with the 18-105mm. See, this is where it actually kind of makes sense to have a power zoom. In the 1990s, the idea I'm pretty sure was to modernize the photographic experience, especially with the outgoing medium of film. In the 2020s, however, and for the sake of nostalgia, I do not enjoy a camera such as the SPxi. Well, the way I see it, the more modern these film cams have become, the more contempt I feel for them. And it's not necessarily about all the stuff they've added, but rather all the things they've taken away. With the DX code and passive modes, they've taken away manual ISO selection on some of these. With the electronic exposure controls, they've taken away mechanical dials and switches. And with the power zoom lens, they've taken away the focusing scale. And out of all these Minolta AF cameras I've messed with, I say this is more a footnote than anything significant at all. And that's in spite of some of the unprecedented features it came with. This 5000 AF I have holds more significance to me even as the little sibling to the first Minolta Maxxum, Dynax, and Alpha series cameras ever released. And yes, the 5000 AF reads DX code and uses program auto exposure by default. However, it also includes the ability to override it to manual and override the ISO selection. It was cameras like the SPxi that defined the late stage of film and helped set things up for digital to eventually take over.